What if the key to understanding the end of the world is hidden in a mysterious number, 144,000? This figure, mentioned in the book of Revelation, has sparked debate, curiosity, and confusion for centuries. Who exactly are these 144,000? And why are they singled out in the end-time prophecy? Are they a literal group of people, or is their significance symbolic? The answers to these questions could reshape your entire perspective on the apocalyptic narrative. In Revelation, this number stands out, not just for its rarity, but for its powerful role in the owning of the final events. These 144,000 are described as sealed servants of God, destined for a unique mission in the last days. But what does it mean to be sealed by God? And why does their identity matter so much to the prophecy of the end times? Across different religious traditions, the interpretation of this group varies. Some view them as literal descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel, while others see them as a symbolic representation of the faithful followers of Christ. And then there are those who argue that the 144,000 could be a spiritual symbol, pointing to a much broader truth about God's ultimate plan for salvation. Whether you see them as a literal remnant or a powerful metaphor, the 144,000 serve as a vital piece of the end-time puzzle. Their role, their significance, and their connection to the world's final events are topics that deserve closer examination. Get ready to dive deep into one of the Bible's most enigmatic and significant prophecies. The 144,000 are one of the most intriguing and mysterious groups in biblical prophecy, specifically in the book of Revelation, mentioned in Revelation 7:1-8 and Revelation 14:1-5. These individuals are depicted as a select group of people marked with a seal from God. The number 144,000 isn't just a random figure. It holds deep symbolic and prophetic meaning within the context of the end time. But who exactly are they? And what is their role in the grand narrative of the Bible's apocalyptic vision? In Revelation, the 144,000 are described as the servants of God, and they are sealed on their foreheads to protect them from the calamities that will unfold during the Great Tribulation. They are often portrayed as a group of faithful followers who have been chosen for a divine purpose in the final days of human history. This seal not only marks them for divine protection, but signifies their purity and allegiance to God. Their role is tied to the unfolding of God's judgment, redemption, and the ultimate victory over evil. A central question that arises is whether the 144,000 are literal or symbolic. Some interpret this group as representing the literal descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel, with 12,000 from each tribe, making up the total number. Others argue that the number is symbolic, representing the complete and faithful people of God, whether Jewish or Gentile, who are chosen to remain steadfast during times of tribulation. The significance of the 144,000 goes beyond just their number or identity. Their purpose is clear. They are part of the divine plan for the end of the world. As witnesses to God's power, they have a unique role in the events that lead up to Christ's return, the final judgment, and the establishment of God's eternal kingdom. Their story provides essential insight into God's judgment, His preservation of the faithful, and His ultimate victory over evil. Understanding who they are can help clarify the broader scope of end-time prophecy and what it means for believers today. The 144,000 is one of the most intriguing and debated numbers in biblical prophecy, particularly in the book of Revelation. The reference to this group appears primarily in Revelations. In these passages, the 144,000 are described as a group of people who are sealed by God, set apart for a special purpose during the end time. Understanding the biblical background and interpretation of this number requires exploring its historical context, symbolism, and theological implications. First, the number 144,000 is the product of 12,000 individuals from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. The reference to these specific tribes suggests a connection to God's covenant with the Jewish people. In Revelation 7, they are described as servants of God, marked with a seal on their foreheads, which symbolizes divine protection and ownership. This sealing is crucial, as it marks them as being distinct from the rest of humanity during the tumultuous period of the tribulation. The interpretation of the 144,000 has sparked considerable debate. Some view this number as symbolic rather than literal. In this interpretation, the 144,000 represents a complete or perfect number, 12,000 from each tribe, signifying the fullness of God's people, whether Jewish or Gentile. The number is often seen as a representation of spiritual purity as the individuals in this group are described as virgins, who have not defiled themselves with idolatry. Revelation. On the other hand, many interpret the 144,000, literally, believing they are actual descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel. According to this view, the 144,000 are a remnant of Israel, who will play a key role in the final days, preaching the gospel and remaining faithful to God amid widespread persecution. These interpretations often vary between different Christian denominations, with some considering the 144,000 as a unique, select group, while others see them as symbolic of a larger group of redeemed individuals. Ultimately, the 144,000 serve as a powerful reminder of God's sovereignty, His faithfulness to His covenant, and the promise of protection and salvation for those who remain faithful, regardless of the interpretation. The 144,000, mentioned in the book of Revelation, have intrigued and puzzled theologians and Bible readers for centuries. Described in Revelation 7 and 14, this group is portrayed as a select group of people, set apart by God during the final days of Earth's history. But who exactly are they? And why are they so significant? According to the Bible, the 144,000 are sealed servants of God, who will play a key role in the end-time events. Revelation 7:4-8 lists them as coming from the 12 tribes of Israel, with 12,000 sealed from each tribe. This raises the question, are these individuals literal descendants of the ancient Israelites? Or is the number symbolic of something much deeper? Some Christian traditions, like Jehovah's Witnesses, interpret the 144,000 as a literal group, identifying them as faithful Christians chosen to rule with Christ in the heavenly kingdom. They view the number as exact and exclusive, meant for those who adhere strictly to certain beliefs and practices. Other scholars, however, suggest that the number is symbolic, representing a perfect or complete group of believers from all nations, not necessarily a literal ethnic lineage. In Revelation 14:1-5, the 144,000 are described as being pure and without blemish, following the Lamb wherever he goes. These characteristics have led many to believe that the 144,000 symbolize a group of faithful, devoted Christians, not bound by ethnicity, but united by their unwavering commitment to God's commandments and the gospel of Jesus Christ. Their purity and dedication contrast with the moral corruption seen in the world at the time of the tribulation. In some interpretations, the 144,000 serve as a first fruits offering, a sign of God's redemption, and a testimony to His power to preserve a faithful remnant in a world on the brink of destruction. While their identity remains a topic of debate, the 144,000 undoubtedly play a crucial role in the biblical narrative of the end times, highlighting the themes of divine protection, purity, and ultimate salvation. The 144,000 play a crucial and symbolic role in biblical prophecy, particularly in the context of the end time. Their mission and significance are outlined primarily in the book of Revelation, where they are introduced as a group of individuals who are sealed by God during a period of intense tribulation. But what does it mean for these 144,000 to be sealed? And why is their role so pivotal in prophecy? The sealing of the 144,000 represents God's protection and divine mark. In Revelation 7, the angel seals 144,000 servants of God, who are described as being from the 12 tribes of Israel. This act of sealing ensures their safety and purity during the tribulation, a time of great chaos and judgment upon the earth. The number 144,000 is not just a literal count, but signifies completeness and divine order, with 12,000 individuals chosen from each tribe. These individuals are specifically chosen to serve God in a time of great distress, acting as witnesses to God's power and protection. Their role goes beyond mere survival. They are seen as instruments for spreading God's message during the tribulation. In Revelation 14, we find the 144,000 standing with the Lamb, representing Christ, on Mount Zion, singing a song that no one else can learn. This reinforces their unique position in God's plan, as they are untainted by the sins of the world and remain faithful to Him, despite the trials surrounding them. Their significance deepens when viewed in the broader context of end-time prophecy. They are not only marked for protection, but also for a purpose, to be part of the spiritual revival and final harvest. Some interpretations view them as a symbol of the faithful believers, who will endure until the end, offering hope that even amidst persecution and destruction, God's faithful will remain steadfast. In essence, the 144,000 are not merely a group of individuals. They represent God's final witness to the world. Their role highlights the importance of faithfulness and divine protection during the darkest moments of history, serving as a beacon of hope for all believers during the final chapters of prophecy. The 144,000 in the book of Revelation are depicted with several unique characteristics that distinguish them from other groups of people in the end time. These traits reveal not only their special role in prophecy, but also offer insight into the nature of those who will be chosen to carry out God's final mission. One of the most striking features of the 144,000 is their purity. In Revelation 14:4, they are described as virgins, which is widely interpreted symbolically, meaning they are spiritually pure and untouched by idolatry or worldly corruption. This purity sets them apart as individuals who have remained faithful to God, despite the pressures and temptations of a fallen world. They are committed to a life of holiness, dedicated exclusively to God's will. Another defining characteristic is their devotion to God. The 144,000 are not only faithful, but they are also described as having a deep, intimate relationship with God. They follow the Lamb Jesus Christ wherever he goes, signifying their complete obedience and unwavering commitment. This level of devotion is integral to their role in the unfolding of end-time events, as their faithfulness becomes a beacon for others in a time of widespread apostasy. Their unique calling and mission also set them apart. In Revelation 7, they are sealed with a mark, symbolizing God's protection and ownership. This mark is not just a physical sign, but also represents their consecration for a specific purpose, to proclaim God's message during the tribulation period. They are tasked with spreading the gospel to the nations, serving as witnesses in the midst of the world's chaos. The 144,000 also possess an incredible song of praise that only they can sing, a testament to their unique relationship with God. Revelation 14:3 highlights this, describing how no one else can learn or sing their song, further emphasizing their distinct identity. Their worship is pure, untainted by the distractions and corruptions of the world. These characteristics, purity, devotion, mission, and worship, underscore the significance of the 144,000 in the end times, offering a powerful example of unwavering faith and commitment in the face of adversity. The 144,000 hold profound significance in end-time prophecy, primarily because they represent a group of individuals set apart for a divine purpose during the final stages of human history. According to the book of Revelation, these 144,000 are sealed by God to protect them from the catastrophic events that will unfold during the Great Tribulation, a period of intense suffering and judgment. Their sealing marks them as God's chosen servants, dedicated to fulfilling a specific mission in the face of widespread chaos. The role of the 144,000 is closely linked to the concept of God's protection and preservation of his faithful people. While the earth is ravaged by natural disasters, wars, and spiritual deception, this group is granted divine security. This sealing is not just a physical mark, but represents spiritual purity and unwavering commitment to God. Their role is essential in maintaining the integrity of God's promises and ensuring that his will is carried out during the darkest days of human history. In the grand scope of biblical prophecy, the 144,000 are also seen as a symbolic representation of the faithful remnant, the true followers of God, who remain steadfast in their devotion despite the overwhelming pressures of the world. Their presence underscores the idea that even in times of widespread apostasy, God will always preserve a faithful group to carry out his will. This emphasizes God's faithfulness in fulfilling his promises, particularly the promise of salvation for those who remain loyal to him. Moreover, the 144,000 serve as a key part of the final harvest of souls. In Revelation 14, they are seen standing with the Lamb on Mount Zion, representing the first fruits of a much larger multitude of believers, who will join them in worshiping God in the end time. Their role is not just to endure the tribulation, but to actively participate in the proclamation of God's message, ultimately pointing to the ultimate victory of God's kingdom over the forces of evil. Their significance, therefore, goes beyond being a mere group of individuals. They symbolize God's protection, the endurance of faith, and the final triumph of righteousness in the battle between good and evil. The interpretation of the 144,000 in Christian denominations varies widely, reflecting differing theological frameworks and views on eschatology. Understanding these interpretations sheds light on how diverse Christian traditions approach the concept of the end times and salvation. For Jehovah's Witnesses, The 144,000 are a central part of their doctrine. They believe that this number represents a literal group of anointed Christians who will reign with Christ in heaven, distinct from the great multitude of other faithful believers who will live eternally on earth. Jehovah's Witnesses view these 144,000 as a select, elite group, chosen to hold special authority in God's kingdom. The rest of humanity, while saved, will not share in this heavenly ruling role, but will instead inherit a peaceful earthly existence under Christ's reign. In contrast, mainstream Protestant denominations, such as Baptists and Methodists, often interpret the 144,000 more symbolically. They view the number as representing the complete, spiritually faithful church, God's people who are sealed for protection during the tribulation period. Some interpret it as a representation of the fullness of the church, made up of both Jews and Gentiles, who have been redeemed through Christ. The focus in these traditions is less on a literal group and more on the idea that these individuals represent the triumph of the faithful over sin and persecution. Catholic theology often leans towards a symbolic interpretation as well, emphasizing that the 144,000 represent the entire faithful body of Christ followers. The Catholic Church doesn't focus on the identity of a specific number, but instead underscores the spiritual purity and devotion represented by the 144,000, aligning with the Church's understanding of salvation as universal and open to all believers. Some evangelical and charismatic Christians also hold a symbolic view but often see the 144,000 as a literal group of Jewish believers who will play a special role in the end times, helping to spread the gospel during the tribulation. In some, the 144,000 are viewed through different lenses depending on theological emphasis, but they all highlight the importance of faithfulness and divine protection in the final day. Whether understood literally or symbolically, this mysterious number carries profound significance in Christian eschatology. The theological implications of the 144,000 are vast and have sparked significant debate among scholars, theologians, and religious community. At the heart of the discussion is the nature of salvation, exclusivity, and the role of the Church in the final events of human history. One of the primary theological questions revolves around the exclusivity of the 144,000. In Revelation 7:4-8 and 14:1-5, these individuals are described as sealed servants of God, set apart for a special mission. The idea that only 144,000 will be saved or play a key role in the end times raises a critical issue. Is salvation limited to this specific group, or does it extend to a much broader audience? This question touches on the doctrine of salvation and whether it's based on election, God's choosing, or faith in Christ. Jehovah's Witnesses, for instance, interpret the 144,000 as a literal exclusive group of individuals who will reign with Christ in heaven, representing a select group of faithful Christians. In this view, only this number of people, the anointed ones, will partake in the heavenly kingdom, while the rest of humanity has the opportunity for salvation on earth. This understanding creates a sharp divide between the heavenly hope and the earthly hope of salvation, which is unique to their doctrine. On the other hand, many mainstream Christian denominations interpret the 144,000 symbolically, representing a larger, unquantifiable group of faithful believers. Some see this number as a metaphor for the entirety of God's faithful people, while others argue it symbolizes spiritual purity, as the 144,000 are depicted as being without blemish and untainted by sin. This interpretation emphasizes the inclusivity of God's plan, pointing to a larger hope of salvation for all who follow Christ. The debate also raises questions about the role of Israel in God's redemptive plan. Are the 144,000 literal Jews, or are they symbolic of the broader church? Does the mention of the tribes of Israel in Revelation point to a future restoration of the Jewish people, or is it a spiritual metaphor for the church as the new Israel? These theological debates challenge the way believers understand God's justice, grace, and the nature of His salvation, shaping their views on end-time prophecy and the ultimate destiny of humanity. The 144,000 hold a significant place in modern Christian eschatology because they are directly tied to key themes of salvation, judgment, and the final triumph of good over evil. The number, derived from the book of Revelation, represents a select group of individuals who are sealed by God to serve as His faithful witnesses during the final days. In contemporary Christian thought, understanding the role of the 144,000 offers critical insight into the nature of God's end-time plans and the future of humanity. First and foremost, the 144,000 are often seen as a symbol of purity and devotion. Their unwavering faith and commitment to God, as described in Revelation 14:4, set them apart from the rest of the world. This resonates with modern believers, who view them as an ideal of Christian righteousness. In an age of moral relativism and spiritual confusion, the 144,000 serve as a powerful reminder of the importance of maintaining a pure, untainted relationship with God, despite external pressures. Moreover, these individuals are integral to the apocalyptic narrative, because they are involved in the sealing process during the tribulation period. This act of being sealed by God emphasizes divine protection and the assurance of salvation, an idea that is central to the Christian doctrine of eternal security. For many Christians today, this promise of divine protection offers hope in the face of personal or global crises, reinforcing the belief that God will safeguard those who remain faithful to Him. In addition to their symbolic importance, the 144,000 also serve as a bridge between Israel and the broader Christian church. Traditionally seen as the 12 tribes of Israel, the 144,000 highlight the continuing relevance of God's covenant with Israel in the end times, while simultaneously underscoring the universal nature of God's salvation plan. They symbolize the fulfillment of God's promise to both Jews and Gentiles, illustrating that all believers, regardless of background, have a role to play in His final plan. Ultimately, the 144,000 are a reminder that the Christian faith is not passive, but requires active participation in God's redemptive story. Their significance in modern eschatology challenges Christians to live with greater intentionality as they await the return of Christ and the fulfillment of God's eternal kingdom. In conclusion, the mystery of the 144,000 in end-time prophecy offers profound insights into the nature of God's final plan for humanity. Whether viewed as literal or symbolic, these individuals play a pivotal role in the unfolding narrative of Revelation. Their distinctive identity as the sealed servants of God is a powerful symbol of purity, faithfulness, and divine protection, reminding modern Christians of the importance of steadfast devotion amid the trials and challenges of life. For those who interpret the 144,000 literally, their role as descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel ties into the broader theme of God's faithfulness to His covenant with Israel. This connection underscores that, even in the midst of the chaotic events described in Revelation, God remains true to His promises, offering hope for both Jews and Gentiles. The inclusion of the 144,000 within the framework of God's ultimate plan affirms that salvation is not only for a select few, but is open to all who remain faithful. For others who view the 144,000 symbolically, they represent the faithful believers, those who remain pure in heart and devoted to God during the tribulation. This interpretation serves as an encouragement for Christians today to live with purpose and commitment, staying true to their faith no matter the circumstances. The 144,000 are not just figures from an ancient text, but living examples for modern believers to emulate. Ultimately, the 144,000 matter because they encapsulate the essence of Christian hope, that God will preserve His faithfulness through the darkest of times, and will fulfill His promises to His people. Their role in end-time prophecy calls Christians to remain vigilant, pure, and committed to God's mission, while also offering a glimpse of the final victory over evil. As we look toward the future, the 144,000 remind us that our choices today have eternal significance, and the faithfulness we demonstrate now will play a part in God's glorious future.